The Sword in the Stone. For centuries, the Sword of Aegis had rested in its stone pedestal, undisturbed. Stories passed down through generations spoke of its incredible power, said to be a relic from a forgotten era when gods and mortals shared the same world. The sword, adorned with shimmering runes, was more than an artifact, it was a test of worthiness, one that no one had ever passed. The sword was nestled in the heart of a remote village, guarded by an enigmatic figure. She was tall, ethereal, and ageless, with violet eyes that seemed to see through time and silver hair that fell like liquid moonlight. Known only as the Keeper, she was a silent witness to every failed attempt. Kings, knights, and wizards had all tried to claim the sword, and each time, she watched them leave in defeat. Her disdain for their arrogance was evident, but she remained silent, until him. He was an ordinary man, a traveler clad in a simple cloak, his boots worn from countless miles. There was nothing remarkable about him at first glance, no armor, no weapon, just a quiet determination in his hazel eyes. He approached the sword with the reverence of someone facing a living legend. "You think you can succeed where countless others have failed?" The Keeper's voice broke the silence, smooth and lilting, but laced with mockery. He turned to her, his gaze calm. "Maybe. But I have to try." Her laugh echoed through the clearing, melodic yet cutting. Bold words for someone so unremarkable. "What makes you think you're worthy?" "I don't," he admitted. "But I'm here, and I'll give it my best." Intrigued, the Keeper stepped aside. "Very well. Show us what you're capable of." He grasped the hilt of the sword, its runes faintly glowing under his touch. As he pulled, the air around him thickened with a tangible energy. His muscles strained, his face contorted in effort, but the sword resisted. Then, just as failure seemed inevitable, the runes blazed with a blinding light. The pedestal cracked, the earth trembled, and with one final effort, the sword came free. The clearing was silent, save for the soft hum of the blade, gleaming like liquid starlight. The Keeper stared in disbelief. For the first time in her immortal life, she was at a loss for words, the weight of the blade. As the man held the sword of Aegis aloft, the clearing felt alive with an electric energy. The blade, radiant and humming softly, seemed to recognize its new wielder. The villagers, who had gathered nearby to witness yet another failed attempt, stood frozen in awe. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through tall grass. The Keeper, still recovering from her shock, finally spoke. "Do you realize what you've done?" Her voice, usually calm and composed, now carried a tremor of disbelief. The man lowered the sword, examining its intricate runes that now pulsed with a rhythm matching his heartbeat. "Not entirely," he admitted. "But I know it wasn't just strength that freed it." The Keeper nodded, her violet eyes narrowing. "Indeed, the sword does not yield to force alone. It chooses its wielder based on qualities far beyond strength or lineage." "But why you?" Her tone was less mocking now, more curious. "I don't know," he replied, his grip tightening on the hilt. "I've spent my life traveling, helping where I can, learning what I can. Maybe that's enough." The Keeper studied him carefully. For centuries, she had watched arrogance and ambition fuel countless attempts to claim the blade. But this man seemed different. His humility intrigued her. Before she could press further, the ground beneath them rumbled faintly. The sword, as if reacting to the disturbance, began to hum louder. The Keeper's expression darkened. "It seems you've awakened more than just the sword," she said gravely. "What do you mean?" the man asked, gripping the blade tighter. The Keeper turned toward the distant mountains, her gaze sharp. "The sword of Aegis is a beacon. Its power has lain dormant for ages, but now that it's been claimed, it will attract forces both good and ill." As if on cue, a low, guttural roar echoed through the valley. The villagers gasped, and some began to flee toward their homes. The Keeper's silver hair glimmered as she turned back to the man. "You must leave," she said firmly. take the sword and go. You've set events in motion that cannot be undone. I can't just abandon these people, he protested. If danger's coming, they'll need protection. The keeper's expression softened for a moment, but only briefly. Your heart is noble, but your power is untested. If you stay, you'll only draw greater threats here. The man hesitated, then nodded. Where should I go? To the ruins of Irinder, she replied. There, you'll find answers, if you survive the journey. The roar grew louder, closer now, and the villagers began to panic. The man glanced at the keeper, who gestured for him to go. Hurry, she urged. I'll hold them off. He hesitated, torn between his desire to help and his need to obey. But the determination in her eyes convinced him. With a final glance at the villagers, he turned and began his journey toward the distant ruins. As he disappeared into the forest, the keeper stepped forward, her violet eyes glowing faintly. She whispered to herself, may the sword's choice be the right one. The roar erupted into a cacophony of chaos as monstrous shapes emerged from the shadows. The keeper raised her hand, summoning a shimmering barrier of light to shield the villagers. For the first time in centuries, she felt the thrill of battle, and the faintest flicker of hope, the journey to Irinder. The man, now a reluctant wielder of the sword of Aegis, moved swiftly through the dense forest. His every step seemed heavier, burdened not by the blade's weight but by the enormity of what lay ahead. The keeper's warning echoed in his mind, the sword is a beacon. He could feel its power coursing through him, resonating like a second heartbeat. The forest stretched endlessly before him, ancient trees towering overhead, their gnarled branches creating a labyrinth of shadows. He pressed on, his path illuminated faintly by the sword's glow. But the tranquility of the woods was deceptive. Every rustle of leaves, every distant cry of a bird set his nerves on edge. A mysterious ally. As dusk fell, the man came across a clearing where a stream glimmered under the fading light. Exhausted, he paused to drink and rest. As he knelt by the water, a voice startled him. You're carrying quite the responsibility, aren't you? He spun around, sword raised, to find a figure cloaked in shadow leaning casually against a tree. The stranger stepped forward, revealing sharp, angular features and piercing amber eyes. Though humanoid, there was something distinctly alien about them, subtle ridges along their forehead, faintly luminescent veins running along their arms. Who are you? The man demanded, his grip tightening on the sword's hilt. The stranger held up their hands, a gesture of peace. Relax, human. If I meant you harm, you'd know by now. I'm Quran. Let's just say I've been keeping an eye on the sword for a very long time. The man's eyes narrowed. How do I know I can trust you? Quran smirked. You don't. But if I wanted the sword, I would have taken it when you were busy stumbling through the forest. Reluctantly, the man lowered the blade but kept it within easy reach. Why are you here, then? To warn you, Quran said, their tone turning serious. The sword has awakened forces you can't begin to comprehend. Some will seek to destroy it. Others will try to claim it for themselves. Either way, you're in over your head. And you're offering to help? Quran shrugged. I have my reasons. Let's just say I have a vested interest in seeing the sword remain in capable hands. The man studied Quran, weighing his options. He was reluctant to trust a stranger, especially one who seemed to know so much about the sword. But the journey to Irinder was treacherous, and an ally, however dubious, could prove invaluable. Fine, he said finally. But if you try anything, I won't hesitate to use this. Quran chuckled. Fair enough, human. Let's get moving. Irinder's a long way, and we're running out of time. The perils of the path. As the pair pressed on, the forest grew darker and more ominous. The air was heavy, and an unnatural silence blanketed the land. Karan's keen senses picked up on movements in the shadows, and they frequently motioned for the man to halt. At one point, they encountered a massive creature blocking their path, a hulking beast with 6 glowing eyes and razor-sharp claws. It sniffed the air, its gaze locking onto the sword. "Stay behind me," Karan whispered, drawing a slender, curved blade that glowed faintly. "No," the man replied, stepping forward. "This is my fight." Karan raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. The beast charged, its roar shaking the ground. The man held his ground, raising the sword of Aegis. As the creature lunged, the sword's runes flared, sending out a wave of energy that struck the beast mid-leap. It howled in pain, retreating into the shadows. Karan let out a low whistle. "Not bad, human. Maybe you're not as helpless as I thought." The man didn't respond, his focus still on the darkness where the beast had vanished. He could feel the sword's power coursing through him, but it came with a cost. Each use left him more drained, as though the blade demanded a piece of his spirit in return. A glimpse of Irinder. After days of treacherous travel, the pair finally reached the edge of the forest. Beyond the trees lay the ruins of Irinder, a sprawling expanse of crumbling towers and ancient structures bathed in the eerie glow of a greenish moon. Karan's expression turned grim. "This is it. The answers you seek lie within those ruins. But so do the dangers." The man nodded, steeling himself. "Whatever it takes, I'll see this through." As they descended toward the ruins, a distant roar echoed behind them, sending a shiver down the man's spine. The keeper's words came back to him, "You've awakened more than just the sword." The journey was far from over. The secrets of Irinder. The ruins of Irinder sprawled across the horizon like the skeleton of a forgotten age. Crumbled towers jutted toward the sky, and ancient stone pathways, weathered by time, weaved through the desolate landscape. A faint green glow emanated from the stones, casting an eerie light over the area. The man tightened his grip on the sword of Aegis, its subtle hum a reminder of its power. Beside him, Karan surveyed the ruins with a mixture of awe and caution. "This place feels alive," the man murmured. Karan nodded. "Irinder isn't just ruins. It's a nexus, a convergence of power. The sword's awakening has likely stirred whatever remains here." They tread cautiously through the ruins, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Ancient carvings lined the walls of the structures, depicting scenes of battles between gods and mortals. The man paused to study one of the murals, his eyes drawn to a figure wielding a sword that looked eerily similar to the one in his hands. The voice of the sword. As he reached out to touch the mural, the sword's hum grew louder, and a voice resonated in his mind. "You have come far, but your journey is only beginning." The man froze, his heart racing. "Did you hear that?" he asked Karan. "Hear what?" Karan replied, glancing around warily. The voice continued, ignoring the man's confusion. "The ruins hold the key to your destiny. But beware, others seek the sword's power. Prove yourself worthy, or all will be lost." The man stepped back, the weight of the sword in his hands suddenly feeling heavier. "The sword, it's speaking to me." Karan raised an eyebrow. "That's new. What's it saying?" "Something about proving myself, and danger," the man replied, his voice uneasy. Karan's expression turned serious. "If the sword's guiding you, we need to follow its lead. Whatever's here, it's likely drawn to the sword's power. We don't have much time." The guardian of Irinder. Deeper into the ruins, they stumbled upon a massive stone archway adorned with glowing runes. The air around it was thick with energy, and the ground beneath their feet vibrated faintly. "This must be the center of the nexus," Karan said, eyeing the archway warily. As they approached, a low growl echoed through the chamber, followed by the sound of shifting stone. From the shadows emerged a towering figure clad in ancient armor, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. It wielded a massive blade that crackled with energy. "The Guardian," Quran whispered. "Every nexus has one, a protector bound to ensure only the worthy pass." The Guardian's voice boomed, shaking the chamber. "Who dares disturb the sanctity of Irinder?" The man stepped forward, raising the sword of Aegis. "I do. I seek the truth about this sword and the power it holds." The Guardian's gaze fell upon the blade, and it hesitated. "The sword of Aegis, it has chosen you. But power is not given lightly. You must prove yourself." Before the man could respond, the Guardian charged, its blade crashing down with the force of a thunderstorm. The man barely dodged, rolling to the side as the ground where he had stood shattered. The trial of strength. The battle was unlike anything the man had ever experienced. The Guardian moved with impossible speed for its size, its strikes relentless. Every blow it landed sent shockwaves through the chamber. The man fought back, the sword of Aegis responding to his will as if it were an extension of himself. Each swing of the blade released arcs of energy, clashing against the Guardian's strikes. Quran stayed on the sidelines, observing but ready to step in if needed. "Remember," he called out, "the sword's power isn't just about strength, it's about balance and strategy." The man took Quran's advice to heart, shifting his approach. Instead of meeting the Guardian's blows head-on, he began to anticipate its movements, using the sword's energy to deflect and counter. With each strike, the Guardian seemed to weaken, its movements growing slower. Finally, the man saw an opening. With a determined cry, he unleashed a powerful strike that sent a wave of energy crashing into the Guardian, shattering its blade and knocking it to the ground. The path forward. The Guardian struggled to rise, but its glowing eyes dimmed, and it finally collapsed. The chamber fell silent, the only sound the man's heavy breathing. "Well done," Quran said, stepping forward. "I didn't think you had it in you." The man ignored the comment, his gaze fixed on the fallen Guardian. As he approached, the Guardian's voice, now weak, echoed in his mind. "You have proven your strength and resolve. The path is open to you, but be warned, true power requires sacrifice." The archway's runes flared to life, and a portal of shimmering light appeared within it. Quran gestured toward it. "This is it. Whatever lies on the other side will give you the answers you're looking for." The man hesitated, glancing back at Quran. "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you," Quran said with a smirk. "After all, I'm not missing out on the fun." With a deep breath, the man stepped into the portal, the sword of Aegis glowing brightly in his hand.